the next episode, we'll see you then. Episode? Do I always say episode? Do I say video? Either way, until the next video. Hey guys, welcome back to another video. So in today's video, we're going to be talking about sexing snakes. Now, I'm going to start, before we say anything, before I go any further, disclaimer people, this is not a how-to tutorial. Do not take, and I'm saying this outright, do not take what you see in this video and try to do it on your own, okay? The reason I say this is if you need to sex a snake and you've never sexed a snake before, please ask someone who has, whether it be a breeder or a local pet shop or even a vet, someone who has experience. And the techniques that we're going to show you, if done correctly, completely harmless. However, if done incorrectly, can cause damage to the animals. So please, please, please use this as informative, right? We're showing you what we do, how we sex our animals and how the industry as a whole sexes their animals. Okay, two main techniques. But don't attempt to do it on your own. Have someone with you to show you, etc. Coach you through it the first several times. Do not attempt it on your own, because last thing we will want is an injured snake, right? And if it's not done properly anyway, apart from it potentially injuring your snake, it probably won't work and you have mixed results. Okay, so let's go on with the video. So first off, we're going to be talking about popping. So there's two main techniques we're going to be talking about: popping and probing. Okay, popping is the less intrusive, easier way of sexing snakes, and it is very effective. As you know, for the most part, you can get really good results from popping. But we find that although you can pop adults and quite easily, it tends to be easiest in fresh hatchlings. Now, this isn't a particularly straight out the egg fresh hatchling. It is only about a month old, about 4 weeks old, or something along those lines, maybe about 5 weeks. The idea is that when they're younger, okay, the tail muscle here is still weaker. As they get older, that muscle on the tail gets stronger and stronger. So this popping technique doesn't work as well with larger animals. Again, does work, it can work. It's just not always as effective, especially with males. So the principle behind this is that we take the tail, we take the animal, okay, and we place our thumb on the vent. So the vent, or the cloaca in snakes or in lizard species in general, is the all-encompassing hole. It's that hole that everything goes in or out from, on the backside anyway. So you'll see the opening, right? Typically there's a large scale, and then you'll have spurs either side of the vent. And you want to place your finger on, and again, it's not a tutorial, so we place our finger on the scale, okay? We press down very lightly and apply very gentle force pulling back, okay? That tends to open the cloaca a bit. Then we take our second thumb and we place it upon the tail, right? And what we're going to do is we're going to apply some light pressure and roll towards the cloaca. A bit like you were emptying out a tub of, the last bit of toothpaste. Just unlike toothpaste, it's minimal pressure, and that's the idea here. Very small amount of force that will give you your results. So if we do this male here, and you'll see 2 red dots, or 2 hemipenes come out, and I will show you a close-up of this now. So you can see light force on the cloaca, pulling down, and then the other thumb rolling forward, causing the hemipenes to come out. And that is really how you sex a snake. So this is a little boy, and you need to also understand, so snakes have two reproductive organs, right? It's two hemipenes. Hemi meaning two, pene, penile organ, the sex organ of a male. So they've actually got two hemipenes, okay? And they actually reside inside out. So they're naturally inside out in the tail. So from the cloaca up to the tip of the tail, they sit inverted in that section of the tail. When you are popping, what you're creating is enough pressure to very gently roll out, okay, and revert or invert, it depends on how you look at it, the hemipenes out again. So you're sort of rolling them out, so they sit inverted inside out, and you're basically applying enough pressure to sort of blow them out and expose them essentially, so you can see if it's a male. Obviously, you know, they'll use one of those two hemipenes, they don't use both at the same time, but that's what it looks like for a male. So what about a female? So with females, they won't have the hemipenes, right? So they do not have those two red appendages that will pop out when you pop them. With a female, again, same principle, finger on the cloaca, gentle process pushing out, but you see there's no redness and nothing comes out, okay? They won't have anything pop out. Should be no redness. Do bear in mind that if you keep doing it over and over and over and over again, you'll cause blood to localize in that area and rush to that area, and it may look reddened, but it doesn't mean it's a male. Males, you should clearly see two things pop out. Now, what if, for example, and this does happen, you pop an animal and it appears to be female? How do you know for sure it's female? Because obviously if we see the hemipenes come out, we're certain it's male. But if we see nothing come out, it could either be it's female, or it could be that we didn't do it correctly, or it's just reluctant to show the hemipenes, to invert the hemipenes out. So that's where we're going to go on to our second technique of how we can actually check to be certain that, you know, our sexes, our females, are indeed females and not males in disguise. So this is a slightly older male here, right? And I'll show you the same technique again with the popping, but with a larger male. And it's sometimes easier to see. So again, you'll see that cloaca, right? Thumb on the cloaca, the other thumb up higher on the tail. And then when you expel it, two hemipenes pop out, clear as day. If that happens, you know for certain it's a male. There's no questioning that. Females don't have hemipenes, right? They will not have hemipenes. You sometimes have males with very small hemipenes, but a female won't, you know, unless it's an anomaly, won't have any hemipenes pop out. So if you see that, we know now that's a male, gets labeled up as a male, it stays as a male, right? But let's take a look at a female. So here we have a lovely female, little phantom hyper female. So if we go about the same technique, okay, again, thumb on the cloaca, other thumb higher up on the tail, applying gentle pressure and rolling back. And you'll see that nothing actually happens. Nothing actually pops out of this. You know, nothing's coming out. There's no redness. It just looks blank. Now, you could say that's a female, but we have had males, and especially where this is a slightly larger animal, there are sometimes animals that are, for multiple reasons, either the tail is too strong, potentially they've got sperm plugs that are causing blockages and making it harder to invert the hemipenes. They don't actually expose the hemipenes as you would. So it could be a male, you just can't really get it to pop. So when it comes to that, we use a secondary technique. And we do this predominantly with our hatchlings. Not as hatchlings, so what we would do typically, when they first hatch, we will sex them by popping, okay? And we sex them all and we label them up, and we try and keep them labeled properly because mistakes do happen. Sometimes we get labels mixed up. So we label everyone as accurate as we can. The males are labeled male from day one. And we know they're males, and closer to the time we may double check just to make sure that the hemipenes are still there and that we're correct on that. Anything that pops female, however, anything that pops and nothing comes out, we don't necessarily immediately think it's a female, okay? We may label it as female question mark, well technically we actually don't ever label them anyways. And we wait until they're about 100, 150 grams, okay? At that stage, they will sort of be getting ready to be sold. We'll be having an idea of what we're going to be keeping, what we're not going to be keeping. And that's when we use the second technique, which is probing. And I'll give you a look at what probing is in just a second. So probing is the second main way of actually sexing these animals. It is more invasive, it requires a more invasive method, and it basically revolves around the simple anatomy of these animals' reproductive organs, right? As we said earlier, males have hemipenes, so they're long extensions that naturally sit inverted within the tail. Whereas females don't actually have those, so that their inversion, the part that actually goes into their tail, is actually much, much shallower. So with probing, you use a reptile probing kit, okay? Again, please don't try this at home. So, unless you have someone who actually shows you. So, these aren't just pieces of metal, they're actually specifically designed, they're rounded at the end. There's different sizes for different animals. I'm not going to be probing an animal in this video. Simple reason, probing is invasive, and we do it to double check sexes because we want to be certain of our sexes, but I'm not gonna subject the animal to potential stress by trying to probe it just for the sake of the video. It's pointless. Hopefully it will show you enough to really give you an idea of how probing works. But the way in which it works is you take your probe, your metal piece, you would use a some form of lubrication. We use Vaseline, okay? And you would insert the probe into the Vaseline, and then you would take your animal. Now, again, if we look back at the cloaca, right, you'll see the cloaca and then obviously the tail. So we know that the hemipenes will reside somewhere in here, okay? Now, if it was a male, you'd expect that to be much deeper. You expect a deep channel in there because that hemipene is sitting inverted. With a female, you'd expect it to be much, much shallower, not very far from the vent. Now, if you are probing, okay, the way it sort of works is with a lubricated probe, you would go either side. You would pick one side of the cloaca because that's where the hemipenes would be. Either side, it wouldn't be in the middle, right? You would insert the probe sort of slightly sideways. We never push. It's a very gentle rotating motion, literally no more force than this, okay? You want to allow the probe to go where it wants to go. You don't want to force the probe to go anywhere, because if you force, you can potentially create quite a lot of damage to the animal. Now, if it's female, what we typically see is that it doesn't go more than 3 scales up. So starting from just past the cloaca, we typically see that the probe doesn't go any further than 3 scales. With males, it tends to go much, much further. Not necessarily just 4 or 5 scales. You'll find that with females, you get like a little piece that goes in, whereas if you do it with a male, you find quite a large, and depending on the size of the male and the size of his hemipenes, a substantial amount of the probe will just glide in. And that's important, glide, not push, okay? So we're gliding these probes in, and they're telling us whether the animal is male or female. So guys, we really hope you enjoyed that video. More of an informative one, please, again, I'm going to reiterate again. If you want to learn to not to probe necessarily, but to sex your animals, please contact a local breeder, a pet shop that has experience probing or sexing in general, or contact a vet and have them show you. Please don't try there's plenty of these videos out there, but please don't try and use these as tutorials on how to do it at home. Because like I said, if done incorrectly, you can hurt your animal. You're always best. Most breeders are welcoming. They'll sit with you. They'll show you exactly how much pressure, the right technique. We actually learned ours from a vet. So a friend of ours who is a vet and a veterinary practice not too far away, we actually learned how to pop from them and how to probe for that matter. So, get someone experienced to show you. Don't just use this and run with it, because we all want these animals to be healthy, safe, and we don't want to cause any potential injury to these animals. Once again, we hope you really enjoyed this video. More content coming up. We will be starting the species profiles. Species profiles? I believe we called it species highlights. It's been a while. We did 2 early on our YouTube channel. We are really going to be focused on bringing them back and bringing them back big. So we're going to do a number of other animals, no time scale yet, but we're going to be bringing them out. We're going to reinstate that, probably a new intro to that series. Really excited to share, the different species we keep. Last thing I will say before we leave this video does apply to most reptilians, okay, lizards and snakes, etc. However, we're talking about ball pythons here. Some of these techniques are fine with ball pythons, completely not usable with others. Very simple example, green tree pythons.
Sambos.
Sambos are actually a bit easier. They're kind of different because they have more of a pop, but we might do that at some stage. With green trees, never ever try to pop or probe a green tree. For the love of God, it doesn't matter whether you're a vet or not. Do not do it. They have such fragile tails. Those kind of animals cannot be sexed in that traditional fashion. Normally, some people do, but typically DNA is the best, or just raise them up and you can sort of work it out from there. But again, ball python, royal, python regis is what this video is about. We really hope you enjoyed that video, guys, and until the next episode, we'll see you then. Episode? Do I always say episode? Do I say video? Either way, until the next video, we'll see you then. Bye.